Happy spring game day. It's finally here. We have a football game today, folks, in beautiful Columbia, South Carolina. Wonderful day today. And we have some football being played at Williams-Brice Stadium. How can you not be excited about that? Welcome into the Postgame Show. This is Elijah Campbell. Jay Phillips will be calling in about 30 minutes. So we're going to get a heritage update. We're going to make sure Jay is all safe and sound, too, because he might be having him some fun. It's not like a day off for Jay, but he is not having to do full show duty, so there's no telling what type of trouble Mr. Phillips can get himself into. So we're going to get an update on that here in about 30 minutes. A lot of preview this spring game because, everybody, I'm excited. I've never been more excited for a meaningless game in the spring on a random play to start the game, for one team at least, than I am for this one. As most of you know who've been listening, I have been given a play calling responsibility for this particular spring game. Last night, had to work out some of the details with Coach Beamer over at Backstreets, and we have concluded that the best time to do this will be the first play from scrimmage when the black team's on offense. And it may or may not have helped that when drafting these teams, the black team hoarded all the quarterbacks, which for a spring game draft strategy, pretty smart. You take most of the quarterbacks. The other team doesn't have as many to work with. So Lenora Sellers will be the starting quarterback, presumably, for the black team tonight for the play that we are going to call and have run. And I like my personnel here. Really only knowing the black team's roster with the quarterback situation. Of course, they have Lenora Sellers and Aaron Noland and Cutter Woods. Didn't really know the position players, but I know that my play is going to work. If you listened in the last segment with Terry Ford at the end of the halftime show, I kind of teased that it's a play that you will not see run during the college football season this year. At least I don't expect anybody else to run what I have called for this play. It's unique. There's a lot of razzle-dazzle here. I'm excited. I think it works. I would not have picked it if I didn't think, A, that it was a fun play, B, if it wouldn't work. Wouldn't pick it. But there is some truth to the funniest outcome is it not working. It would be hilarious, even at my expense. But I'm excited because I like the roster that we have here. The black team offensive roster. Again, just reeled off the quarterbacks with Sellers, Nolan, and Woods. Running back, Rasul Faison, Jawarren Howell, two of the notable names of that running back. Tight end, which may or may not be important for my play, Jordan Dingle, Brady Hunt. And then I got a good core of receivers here between Mazio Bennett, Jared Brown, Lex Cyrus, Vandrevius Jacobs, Eric Rice, Brian Rowe Jr. I like what I have. And most importantly, the play needs a good left tackle. It needs a strong left tackle. And if you look at the offensive line roster for the black team, Josiah Thompson. Luck of the draw there on that part, but I think this is going to work. This is going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you tune in. I know we're going to have our radio broadcast. The pregame show is going to start at 6:30. Game's going to start at 7:30. And if you want to watch all of this, unfortunately not televised this year, but it will be free to the public. Anything free is good. Free food is good. A free ride is good. Free admission into Williams-Brice Stadium for a football game on a Friday night, a beautiful Friday night in mid-April, even better. Highly suggested. I am incredibly excited. I'll also be on the sideline doing some sideline reports for the radio broadcast as well. So you can listen to us here on 107.5 The Game, or go to our YouTube page. We'll be having a video live stream, not of the game, but it's of our broadcasters and myself on the field for all of this as well. Expecting that to be pretty fun, especially considering if we end up scoring on the play that I called, then contained at all. And, of course, later on in this hour, we'll also discuss the big baseball win last night. That was huge, not just because this team needed a win in the worst way, but they got some production on the mound that we haven't seen a lot of this year, especially when it comes to playing against high-level competition especially in the Southeastern Conference. So we'll hear some sound from Coach Paul Maneri later on. But looking at this spring game too, I'll go ahead and run down some notables for each team. That way, whenever you show up to the game, you have a good idea of who's playing for who. I ran down the list on offense for the black team. Defensively, the black team's going to have Nick Barrett, Xavier Hardy, Jaquavius Dodd, J.T. Gear, Brian Thomas Jr., Fred J.R. Johnson, Justin Okoronkwo, Josh Smith, Dutch Fork, shout out. And at corner, Brandon Cisse, Judge Collier. And then at safety, David Busey, Kelvin Hunter, Peyton Williams. So that's some of the notable names there for the black team. The Garnet team tonight, quarterbacked by Luke Doty, and then backed up by Dante Reno. At running back, Bradley Dunn, Oscar Attaway III, Matthew Fuller. Some tight ends, Maurice Brown, for those who remember him blocking the punt against LSU. We might see him a little more active in the passing game this year. That's something Shane has alluded to a couple times here over the course of the spring. He was great on special teams. I'm really excited to see what he does tonight in a pass-catching and run-blocking tight end role. And then at receiver, you have a really interesting list here for the Garnet team. A lot of the freshmen that this program is about, because of the potential that's there and the role that he's going to be filling on the defensive line. You're going to have to replace TJ Sanders and Tonka Hemingway's production. Can you get that talent level from Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and turn that into production? Excited to see what he does tonight. Monkel Goodwine also on the defensive line. Now, the one thing that does concern me about my personal matchup here as a one play caller for the black team is I do have to go against Dylan Stewart. Dylan Stewart is the edge rusher for the Garnet team, along with Desmond Umeozulu. And D. Stewart's the best pass rusher in the country. So that's if this works, I have that on the resume there. But Dylan Stewart, if you're looking for him tonight, number 6 on the Garnet team. Sean Murphy is going to be one of the linebackers as well. I'm really high on him. I really enjoyed talking to him whenever we had our media availability with the transfer players not too long ago. And then at corner, that's going to be kind of highlighted by Miles Norwood, the Ball State transfer. Interested to see if he's the one who ends up taking the reins. Obviously, Brandon Cisse, the transfer from NC State, who's going to be on the black team tonight, was a very highly touted transfer portal addition, and I know Cisse is going to be productive, but Miles Norwood can really help this team out and help replace the production that O'Donnell Fortune kind of leaves behind. Gerald Kilgore and DQ Smith going to be back there at safety as well, so excited to see those two for the Garnet team. Want to see if Gerald Kilgore can get himself onto the field. I see a lot in Gerald Kilgore, former Tennessee Tech safety. Came here last year, didn't get a ton of playing time. Interested to see what he does with his opportunity. So there's a lot going on tonight. And in terms of just what I'm really excited to watch for, it's still that group of receivers. And it's not that wide receiver's a question. I don't think it is, because you got a lot of production coming back. Last year, it was kind of like you lose Xavier Legette, who had an all-world season, became a first-round NFL draft pick, who steps up and fills in that production. I think you know what you got in Nick Harbor and what you know what you have right now, and it can only get better, especially now that he's got a full spring of practicing with this bunch. There's a lot to be excited about with him. There's a lot to be excited about with Mazeo Bennett, who was an exceptional route runner in his first season as a South Carolina Gamecock. What is he going to do in year 2? That's an exciting thing with a larger role in the offense that I could maybe assume that he's going to have, but all of these freshmen. And unfortunately, Donovan Murph not able to practice in the spring, still finishing up his high school career over at Irmo High School. But as somebody who covered him when writing for the Lexington County Chronicle, being the sports editor there, I saw a lot of Irmo football, and I saw a lot of what this kid has done at a young age of the high school game. Remember, he is graduating early this spring from Irmo High School, so he reclassified up to be able to play, or at least be on the roster this year. So as a freshman, sophomore, junior year specifically, remarkable production from him at the high school level. Makes some jaw-dropping catches, has incredible speed. I'm really excited to see what he looks like. Unfortunately, not going to be playing in the game tonight, but some of the names I mentioned earlier between Malik Clark and Jordan Gidron and Jaden Sellers, there's a lot of intrigue there. There's a whole lot of intrigue of what those guys would be able to bring to the table, as well as Lex Cyrus and Brian Rowe Jr. I mean, like that's Lex Cyrus is one of those two, man. Anytime you steal a recruit from Penn State out of Penn State's own backyard, that's a big recruiting win. And watching his tape, out of all the guys in terms of the tape I've been able to watch, I think I was the most impressed with Lex Cyrus's. There's a lot to like there, a lot of physical tools. One of these guys I expect to play a solid role this season, whether it be Clark or Gidron or Sellers or, or Cyrus, or maybe even Donovan Murph if he just ends up coming up in the fall and immediately starts wowing people. I think that's a real possibility. But one of those guys is going to have a really good role on the team as a freshman this season. Which one stands out tonight is going to be interesting. Now, whether or not tonight is the end-all, do-all, it's not. It's not. There's a whole 2+ weeks of practices that this team can use, or this coaching staff, rather, can use as kind of, data points and reference points and an entire sample size that doesn't all culminate into one game. I understand that, but it is interesting. There is an element of seeing what these guys do when the lights are on and there's a big crowd and you're at Williams-Brice Stadium and you go through the game day routine. What type of guys are game day players? I think you can learn a little bit of that in a spring game. Not to the fullest extent, but I think you can learn enough to be able to go into the fall with a pretty good idea of the role that you want these guys. And there's just such a talented class of freshman receivers that I think you're going to be able to see something from one of them tonight. Later on, I'll talk about the offensive line, too, because the offensive line is another intriguing one because there's about 13 guys there that are capable of seeing a lot of snaps this season. You can only start about 5 or 6, maybe 7, depending on the formation at a time. So there's going to be some decisions having to be made by this coaching staff in terms of who they end up throwing out there on a starting basis. There's some real position battling going on with the offensive line. We can touch on that here later on the show. But coming up next, that baseball team. It's been a rough season. I get it. And one win doesn't define an entire year or is some type of harbinger for a miraculous turnaround. But, buddy, it gave this team a little bit of hope. And it may or may not have set them up for further success in this weekend series against Ole Miss. I will tell you why when the postgame show returns. You guys don't need me to remind you. It's been a pretty tough season for South Carolina baseball. Beat a lot of the teams that you're supposed to beat in the non-conference, sure. But you got swept by Clemson, and in the first 15 SEC games, you were only able to win 2 of them, and they didn't come in the same series, so you can make the assumption that you've yet to win an SEC series. And it's not just that you've lost all these games. Sometimes it's the manner in how you lose them. And I'm old enough to remember last weekend when you got beat by losing a lead in the first game against Texas A&M, and then you got beat 17-0 and run ruled in the second, and then the third you blow a 10-run lead. I not rehash all of that, but it's kind of been what last weekend was. It's kind of just been a microcosm of the struggles that this team has had this season. But not last night. Not last night it wasn't, no, because the South Carolina Gamecocks took care of a top 15 Ole Miss team 3-2, and there might not be a baseball team in America, my friends, who needed this win more than your South Carolina Gamecocks. Paul Maneri talked about it last night. We'll hear from him. He was kind of asked, or he walks up to the podium last night, and the first thing he talked about was that this is definitely a much, much needed victory.
Well, goes without saying that was a great win for us tonight, badly needed, and just so proud of the guys for the way that they've kept their chins up and kept battling hard. I get a lot of questions sometimes how you keep guys going, and you just got to keep going forward. You just keep trudging forward. Obviously, the key to the game was this big fella sitting next to me. He was in complete command tonight, and I've told you this many times that anybody that thinks pitching is 90% of the game is largely underestimating its importance. He completely dominated the game today, gave his team a chance. We got a couple of big hits, and great defense, and it was a wonderful win for us.
It was, and that's what I wanted to lead into. He mentioned the fella sitting next to him. That fella's Brandon Stone. I know before this series, when Jay and I were talking a lot this week about the starting pitching issues, one of the things that has stood out to me is that they just haven't gone deep enough in games. Because when you don't have a bullpen that is at an elite level or a high-level SEC, you're going to need your starters to give you as much as humanly possible, so you're not putting as much strain on that bullpen. You don't have to rely on them as much. And even when the roles are kind of changing throughout the year with some people playing or pitching, starting on the weekends or midweek and then moving them to either midweek or weekend, or even moving them from starting role to bullpen, you're in an experimental period that can yield some results that aren't very consistent. And you can yield some results that can be a little skewed because it can be a byproduct of just not being in a rhythm. Like pitchers, especially, creatures of habit. And sometimes when you're not having the same habits and you're not going through the same routine throughout an entire season, it can maybe mess with your rhythm and what you do on a day-to-day basis. But you really needed your starters to establish themselves as guys who can get you 6 innings, or even 5 1/3, 5 2/3. The more that you can use those starters and not have to use up a lot of your bullpen, because think about it, like in game 1 of a 3-game series in the SEC, if your Friday starter gets rocked, or your Thursday starter in this instance, if they get rocked early and they don't make it out of the 4th inning, then you're going to have to rely on your bullpen to pitch over half the game. And then you're not going to have one pitcher normally pitch those 5 innings. So you dig into your bullpen, you use more arms, and the more arms you use, the less you can use those guys the rest of the way. And it only puts more pressure, not just on the bullpen later on in the weekend series, but it puts more pressure on the starters for Saturday and Sunday, or in this instance, Friday and Saturday, to be able to go a little further, even if they're not pitching their absolute best. It kind of forces your hand as a coach a little bit. But the best case scenario happened last night. The absolute best case scenario happened for the South Carolina Gamecocks, and that's Brandon Stone going the distance. A complete game. Here's the line here. 9 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs given up on 6 hits. Here's the kicker. This is the thing that is manna from the heavens for South Carolina Gamecock baseball fans. 0 walks, 0 hit batters. There was 1 wild pitch that I think that was credited to him, but if you just went 9 innings with no walks, no hit batters, no free passes, considering what we've seen the last couple weekends in the SEC play where you walk a lot of batters, and even in non-conference play, there have been some games that you've won, but in the process, walked a lot of batters or hit a lot of batters. I think about that College of Charleston game where you won, but it wasn't pretty. You might have, put a little too many people on base, freely without them having to swing the bat. But that was like the biggest thing. And anytime we have, whether it be, Derek Scott or Paul Maneri on, or, Stuart Lake, John Whittle, Jack Veltri, the people who cover the team or are part of the team or around the team, like the biggest thing with pitching the last couple of weeks has been control. Why has the control not been there? What's been wrong with the ability to throw strikes on this team? But Brandon Stone did a phenomenal job last night. And Derek Scott on the broadcast, I think, did a really good job of pointing out, the sinker was going well for him. And part of your sinker going well, one of the best parts about a pitcher in college who can throw a really good sinker is you might not strike out 9 or 10 guys and put up some ridiculous stat line, but you can force a lot of hitters to hit the ball on the ground. Sinker ball pitchers are notorious for not giving guys something to hit that's going to be leaving the yard. Now, granted, Ole Miss was able to tack on their 2 runs by way of solo homers, but they were solo shots because you did a good enough job keeping people off the base. You didn't walk anybody. You didn't hit any batters. So when those balls leave the park, it's only counting for 1. And that's an issue that we've talked about with the hitting this year for South Carolina is most of the home runs you hit are solo shots. You got to be able to plate set a little more and then be able to knock it out and let, whoever's coming up to hit that home run bring you in more runs than just the solo shot. But Brandon Stone and what he did with his sinker last night, too, forced a lot of balls on the ground, and in doing so, forced 3 double plays. Say that again. Ole Miss grounded into 3 double plays last night. You think that's pretty big in a 1-run game? That's the type of stuff that wins you 1-run games. I'm not here to say that this is going to be some dramatic, miraculous turnaround, but what happened in this game for South Carolina to be able to get a pitcher to go the distance, pitch all 9 innings, and do so, I think by throwing it, 86 pitches? That's very Greg Maddux-like in terms of going through a complete game and not having to exhaust your arm past 100 pitches. But for him to be able to do that last night, get you through the entire game, not have to use your bullpen, gives Paul Maneri and this coaching staff just carte blanche to do what they want with the pitching the rest of the weekend. Their hand is not forced. You heard me earlier in the segment. Sometimes when your pitcher gets rocked early on in the series, you're forced to use more of your bullpen, especially guys that you probably wanted to save to use on that Saturday or Sunday. And then you can only use less pitches from them. It really ties your hands together in what you can do. And if tonight you can get 6-7 innings from your starter, and then you use even less of your bullpen, you have the freshest bullpen imaginable by the time you get into that finale on Saturday. It's a big win to be able to beat somebody in the top 15 nationally. It's a big win to be able to beat a team in your conference, especially when you come into this game last night at 2-13 in SEC play. You needed it in the worst way on a very fundamental level. But what you did last night sets you up to be able to win another game, or maybe even 2. That's one thing we've wanted to see from this team all conference season long, is to be able to just win a series. And now you're in the driver's seat to win a series against a top 15 team in Ole Miss because of what Brandon Stone did on the mound last night. And that is exciting. They play game 2 of that series today. That's going to be on 98.5 WOMG. So if you're looking around, or 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach, if you're tuning around right now trying to find, pregame coverage, well, it's not going to start for about another 17 minutes. But when it does, it will be on 98.5 WOMG, so you can hear Derek Scott and Stuart Lake on the call for this South Carolina Gamecock baseball team trying to win an SEC series. And based off what Brandon Stone did last night, I like their chances a whole lot more winning the series than I did coming in to this series. Coming up next, my man Jay Phillips going to join me. We're going to get an update of what's going on over at Harbortown. Big day for a few big name golfers yesterday, including Scotty Scheffler. Where's he at right now? My man Tony Finau. I'm going to get an update on him as well. Ludwig Aberg hanging around as well. We'll see exactly where the leaderboard stands as we go into the weekend over at the Heritage. You're listening to the Postgame Show. All right. It's time to check in with someone you may know, you may have heard before, in that you may normally listen to from 3 to 6 on these airwaves, Monday to Friday. Yes, that is the other half, the namesake of the show. One, Jay Phillips, who I'm sure we have kept out of trouble, or at least kept from throwing up publicly, over at Hilton Head or at Harbortown, as he is there covering the Heritage. Jay, can we get an update on your status? Everything in place? Not any trouble caused, no heckling of golfers bad enough to be able to get you swung at?
As far as you know, everything you just said is true. I have remained out of trouble. I have not heckled anybody as of yet. I have walked a lot. I haven't. You know what? I need to check. I'll tell you later. I haven't checked how far I've gone today, but as always on Friday, it's great to just get around and see what's up. As I told you, a huge crowd. Although I'm telling you, man, yesterday was big. It was a lot more crowded yesterday than it was last year on Thursday, but very crowded today. Another beautiful weather day. Although I will tell you, for a good stretch today, a lot more blustery than yesterday. There was hardly any wind at all yesterday, but today for a bit there was. Now, whether it was keeping some scores down or not, it remains to be seen, because there's some guys that are hitting some low numbers. Siwoo Kim today, 8 under, and he's playing 14 right now. He is crushing it.
Good Lord.
Justin Thomas was 10 under yesterday. He just birdied 9, so he is hitting the turn at 11. So both of those guys at 11 under par. But Siwoo Kim is absolutely destroying this course as of now. Andrew Novak, Russell Henley at 9. Scotty Scheffler just made the turn. He is at 8 under par. Watched Colin Morikawa for a while today. He's doing well. It's been a fun day, man. And I saw your favorite guy, Tony Finau. I actually watched him a lot. I would say I saw the Finau and Jason Day group the most of any today. But yeah, it really was. It's been a good day. We spent some time at the 17 green, little par 3, very short hole, very tiny green, and nobody could birdie it, man. I at least when I was there, and I was there for about 6 groups. Just a good spot to kind of hang for a bit, and didn't see anybody make a birdie, and a lot of guys just missing it. But I'm talking like postage stamp greens, man, or a green on 17. But no, it's been perfect, and I can also confirm, and I want everybody back home to feel good about this, especially our colleagues at 107.5 The Game in Columbia. I can confirm that at least as of 2 p.m., Bill Gunter had not fallen into any of the bodies of water here and been eaten by an alligator. So
as of 2 o'clock, you said?
I saw him about 2. I've seen him a couple of times today. We took a picture with one another on the first fairway when we saw each other this morning. And so, he's here. He's good. And I saw him again, around 2, about an hour and a half ago. He was in good spirits. Take that as you would like.
That's a double entendre. If I've ever heard one.
And again, has not, at least been eaten by an alligator or otherwise arrested, thrown off the course, anything like that. Now, where he is now, I do not know. So we'll hope that Mr. Gunner remains out of trouble. But it's been a good day. It's been a good day.
Hoping is mostly what we can do, because I know you said you saw him at 2, but that's been 98 minutes ago. So a lot can change. Especially a lot can change in that situation in a span of like 30 seconds. And I saw him in that area over by 17, where there is a nice little pond to the left of the hole and the left of the green. So no. I'm not sure if he's okay or not. And as we speak, Matt Kuchar is walking about 15 feet in front of me. Hey, Matt, what's up? So there's Cooch right there. Just got done. Yeah, I should have getting to come over. I love just calling him Cooch, just like like you're on a nickname basis with him.
Well, it was funny because I came out here about 5. I'm calling you right now from the same spot where I've done the show all week near the 18th green, and he gets the Cooch. So I was like, are they booing? Oh no, okay, just Matt Kuchar coming off the green, so that's good. But he's right here at 18. But yeah, Gunner's good. The golf is good. The weather is great. There's that fire from yesterday. I guess they put it out, so that's good. A lot of boats in the water. None of them Bill Gunner. So hey, it's been a great Friday.
I was going to say I hear boats in the water, and I was like, surely Bill. joined the party there.
Nope.
And brought his.
No,
Bummer.
not that I know of. Now,
Bummer.
again, maybe, knowing Gunner, he'd just run across 18 to try to jump into one of those boats. So, but he hadn't done that yet. But don't tempt him.
Mission Impossible like stunts, but before we even get you out of here too, I want to get your take on what happened over at the Ray last night, man. Brandon Stone, a complete game. We just got done talking, earlier this week about how this team desperately needed their starters to get you some innings and not put as much stress on your bullpen, and that may be one of the reasons why you end up losing a 10-run lead against Texas A&M last weekend. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but I have a feeling that, putting that stress on your bullpen doesn't necessarily ease that situation any. Didn't have to worry about it last night. An 86 pitch complete game going the distance, about as good as you could have possibly asked for from him last night.
Yeah, and look, don't anybody take this, I'm being, but it's Greg Maddux-esque in terms of the efficiency of the number of pitches and what was allowed. They needed it. Look, I know they tossed a shutout the other night against the Citadel, and that's great, but it's the Citadel, so you can't necessarily know. Mississippi comes in as a top 15 team, and it goes to something that you and I had been talking about yesterday, with Jack Beltry and amongst ourselves, just, getting a level of consistency. And look, you're not going to consistently get, sub 100 pitch complete games from a college pitcher, but to find a rhythm, to find a groove, to find a role, to find the confidence, they've got to do something like that. And, how much Coach Maneri or Coach Rooney have tried to put something in between their ears to help these kind of things happen, I'm not sure. We all talk about it a bunch. Paul Maneri knows, so much about this game and so much about how to handle this age type of player, but for whatever reasons this year, it just hadn't been happening. And look, I'm glad it happened. Carolina fans are glad it happened. The team is glad it happened. But now, Elijah, it's I hate to say it this way, but it's over, and you got to go do it again. You got to win this series. If you're going to do something this year that includes postseason play, you got to win this series. Now, whether you win tonight or tomorrow, look, win them all, great. But you got to win this series. So take it and roll with it.
Yeah, build on it a little bit. I mean, we talked a lot about what, it might be impossible to salvage the season in terms of making a run to the NCAA tournament. That ship might have sailed. I mean, unless you just go on a tear that is completely unforeseen, then maybe circumstances can change by the time they get to Hoover. But this is more so just making sure that your program doesn't bottom out. Like you're playing for the program right now, and your first SEC game since that collapse at College Station, for it to be that last night, it's got to make you at least feel good about the chances of winning this series, considering you have your entire bullpen at your dispersal this weekend.
Exactly. And that's going to be crucial at some point here, maybe as soon as, 15 minutes when this game starts, or at least a couple hours from now when the game is in the throes of the final innings. And they do need that pen, and they will. But, no, certainly a fantastic performance last night. And again, hopefully as much as anything else, just a giant shot of confidence for these guys, because it was rocked the other day, 17-0, and then a 10-run lead collapses. That's brutal, man. Again, we talked about it all week. Unthinkable, but it happened. And so now what do? Well, there's a good first start. Go do it again.
Jay Phillips, he'll join me again in the next hour at 4:30. We'll get some more updates from the Heritage, as well as, Jay, tell you the pros and cons of what the spring game roster is like and how that impacts my play.
Yeah, and that character on SNL, Drunk Uncle, from a few years ago that used to show up with Colin Jost? Okay, that's all I'm saying.
That's what I'm hoping for, is either that you are completely slurring words or vomiting on air. And if we don't accomplish either of those, it's a missed opportunity.
We'll see what happens, man. Tune in. That's a tease.
That's a hell of a tease, too. 45 minutes. Is Jay Phillips coherent? You'll find out when he rejoins the postgame show. All right, Jay, get back to it. Right. Get back to it.
Yes, sir. All right. See y'all soon. All right.
Good stuff. Again, we'll be talking to Jay in about 45 minutes again, so we'll see what his status is like after that, and might even be scared to take the call whenever he does call in. We'll see. But coming up, what better way to end the first hour of this show, especially on a day where South Carolina's playing in their spring game, than to give you just the ultimate example of why people say the SEC just means more. Is it more than just a cliche? Well, somebody with some deep-rooted SEC fandom made that slogan come to life this week. I'll tell you who it was when the postgame show returns. It's not just a cliche, folks. In the Southeast United States, we live it. And the slogan the SEC has adopted for a while now of "it just means more," trademarked and everything, has finally found maybe the greatest encapsulation as to what that means. If you haven't seen the story, I'm very excited to tell this to you. If you have, then I think you know where I'm about to head with this. But something wild has happened over the last week or so. Obviously, we talked a lot about the Nico Iamaleava situation where he leaves Tennessee, he's going to UCLA. Apparently, some report it as an NIL dispute. I still think a lot of it probably might be some disputing that as well. But it was highly publicized, and it was the story of college football in this past weekend. Well, all the way across the pond in South Africa, a pastor kidnapped at gunpoint and held hostage for about a week in South Africa. Ultimately, he was rescued, and someone ended up breaking the news to him that Nico Iamaleava is no longer the quarterback of the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, naturally, being from Maryville, Josh Sullivan is, big Tennessee Vol fan. Maryville is not far from Knoxville at all. It is a very short drive from Maryville to Knoxville. It is definitely in the heart of East Tennessee. And I want to play you a clip here from Sam Luther. Sam Luther tweeted this out. He's a reporter for WVLT in Knoxville. He tweeted out a video of where he interviewed Tom Hatley, who's a fellow pastor in Maryville. Obviously, him and Josh Sullivan are really close. And what Tom's about to give you is the thing that was most upsetting to Josh Sullivan, despite being kidnapped and held at gunpoint for over a week in a foreign country. This is seemingly all Josh Sullivan could worry about once he was rescued.
He was upset over Nico.
On that FaceTime?
Well, no, he didn't say it on FaceTime. What was said was the missionary that was there that was helping and got him picked up and so forth is a big Georgia Bulldog fan. And they were instructed to do small talk when they first get him, small talk. Just don't talk about nothing serious, just small talk. So he said, well, Nico left, don't you? And his wife told me last night, said the biggest conversation we've had has been about Nico. Hey, the boy was raised in East Tennessee. What can I tell you? And you notice on...
This means more with the SEC. That's the type of example, right? Like, this guy was just held hostage, on mission work, and has had the worst week of his life. And the first thing he hears when he gets rescued is that Nico Iamaleava leaves. That's all he can talk about. And I think that might be, I know it's in Tennessee, but it's the most relatable thing for Southeastern Conference football fans, because I know all of you that call in, that text in, that interact with us on a daily basis, that are just diehard crazy about the South Carolina Gamecocks can absolutely relate. You can absolutely relate to having that type of passion. Maybe not relating to being kidnapped at gunpoint in a foreign country. I can't say I've had that happen to me, and I think more than likely you listening has not experienced anything like that. But sometimes in life, the escape that you get with college football can end up being one of the biggest parts of it. So, like, seeing that, all I could think of was, wow. You can almost insert that type of situation to any fan base in the Southeastern Conference, with the exception of Vanderbilt probably, and that be applicable. It definitely goes to show that, I guess, in the Southeastern Conference, as much as it's become a cliche, as much as it's become, I don't want to necessarily say a punchline, but anytime the SEC loses in anything, the opposing conference that beat them is more than happy to remind you that it just means more. But in instances like this, it kind of shows there's a reason that that tagline or that slogan has been implemented and trademarked, and that every time you hear it just means more, you think the Southeastern Conference. It's because of that right there. And another reason why I think that, too, is because you get these massive crowds at spring games, too. We're going to hit a lot of this spring game coming up in the next hour. Of course, we'll keep talking about the play that I'm going to call, because I am through the roof excited about it. I mean, if you want to talk about something that just means more, I don't think there's ever been a meaningless play in a spring game that just means more to me than what's about to happen here in a couple hours over at Williams-Brice Stadium. So we'll break that down a little bit, too. We'll hear from Shane Beamer. He was at Backstreet's Grill last night. We didn't just have our coaches meeting over at Backstreet's. He kind of did a radio show as well, where he talked a lot about the progress of his team so far in this spring. And also, is there a transfer portal target in the spring this Gamecock team's looking at that may adequately fill that Kyle Kennard role? We'll discuss that and a whole lot more starting in hour number 2 of the postgame show. Hour number 2 of the post-game show, and it's probably time, I guess, for you to remind you as well. Only 2 full hours of today's show. We'll be running best ofs in the final hour from 5 to 6. Normally, we do our 5 o'clock news. We do the drive around the SEC. But to ensure that I'm at that stadium on time, and I got to be early. It's one thing about doing sideline reporting is on time is early. On time is late. That makes sense. I cannot push it too close. So we're going to head out of here a little bit earlier today, but we'll have some best ofs from 5 to 6 to make sure that I'm on the sideline to be able to report to you what goes on during the spring game tonight. Very excited about that. Obviously, it's going to be kicking off at 7:30, so 3.5 hours away from game time between the Garnet team and the Black team. Favorite annual inter-squad scrimmage. Very excited about it, but with the spring game leads us to a lot of questions about what you want to achieve. Spring games are different for everybody. Different coaches have different type of objectives they want to achieve during the spring game. And last night on Carolina Calls, Shane Beamer was definitely asked about what are some of the goals that we have for the spring.
But no, those are certainly the goals when you go into the spring and feel like those certainly are things that we accomplished and did. For me, there's just a lot of new faces, and for all that we bring back off of last year's team, there's so many brand new people that weren't even here last year. How quickly can we, get them acclimated? And we were able to do that and feel like we've gotten better since day one of spring practice to now. And then certainly we lost a ton of leadership off of last year's team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. And they're all gone. I kidded, I think, with the media. When we went out there for our first day of spring practice, Todd, that was the first time that since I've been the head coach at South Carolina that O'Donnell Fortune, Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, Bam Scott, Debo Williams, Kai Kroger, Hunter Rogers, Alex Herrera, Vershawn Lee, all these guys were not out there with us. They've been a part of every practice since I've been the head coach of the Gamecocks, and that was new, but it gives other guys an opportunity, and that's what's fun about coaching. And we've seen some leadership step up, and we'll need them to continue to throughout the year.
That's one thing about these spring practices and going into the spring game tonight to see exactly how well they're going to be able to apply the things they've learned with the new faces. He reeled off a bunch of names of players that have been at every practice and have been showing up every day ever since he took the job. Now he's going into his 5th year, so he's got guys on the roster now, a lot of them because of a lot of the transfer portal additions and some of the losses they had on defense. Going to have a lot of new faces there. Going to have a lot of guys trying to get acclimated with what it is that this team does. And from an operational standpoint, you got to make sure everything is squared away, right? You don't want to have to teach a new offensive line or a lot of new offensive linemen, because that's the best part about this offensive line, right? You have a mix of guys who have been here for a few years. You have a potential star tackle with Josiah Thompson going into his 2nd year, a guy who's a freshman All-American. But you also included some transfer portal players of guys who have played a lot of football at multiple different positions across the offensive line. Sometimes when it comes to maybe a lack of continuity from one year to the next with the entirety of like an offensive line or a defense, there's some operational things that might be bugs, right? Maybe not something that's going to rear its head in the fall, but it's something that you want to be able to master in the spring. So by the time we get to those practices in August, you got the fundamentals down. You're lining up correctly. You understand the playbook. Everybody knows each other's responsibilities on any given play and any given snap. The spring is the perfect time to install the basics of whatever your offense is or whatever your defense is, that you can install the basics and from an operational standpoint, be as sound as humanly possible by the time the bullets start flying in the regular season. And to not have to waste any time in your August practices going over the basics. Because I know for a fact that is one thing that drives coaches crazy, is at any point in the season, operational errors costing you 5 yards, costing you a first down, costing you a lot of things that are the basics. And they don't like wasting time in practice. You only get so much time to practice. And if you have to keep hammering home the fundamentals of lining up, of the play, of the assignment, then you're wasting time on fundamentals when you can be taking the next step into the development of the players and being able to come up with a game plan for that first game against Virginia Tech, or once you get into the season, with whoever's you're playing next, you can game prep. This is the perfect time to get the operational stuff and the basics and the foundation completely out of the way. And with a lot of new faces, that might be a little more of an emphasis. And I think that's why they discussed it last night, is because the roster does look different, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So mastering those basics becomes a little more important. It becomes a little more crucial. So really, when it's things that you want to get from a spring game, most of it is the operational side. And Shane actually talked about that a couple of days ago too. I think it was on Tuesday. Been a fun week, but sometimes I get my days mixed up. But he was definitely asked during the press conference on Tuesday what his approach to this game is, what makes a successful spring game, especially with his team this year.
Not really. I mean, every year you're kind of tweaking and you look back at what you did the year before and how to be better. Or I look back on what I did last year or what we did on practice 12 last year, and I look back at notes and then I adjust today based on that, but not a ton. It's a little bit different this year. Instead of getting 15 practices, we're doing 14. So that's a little bit of adjustment just with how we're finishing up the spring, because you got to combine a couple days, if you will. I think every team's different. You're constantly tweaking and adjusting, but overall, general philosophy really hasn't changed a whole lot since year one. You're hopefully always trying to, learn and get better and do things better the next year than what you did the first year, but probably more similarities than differences.
Different cut than what I thought it was, but what he also, that's good information to have there. But what also he brought up too is just the operational standpoint too, making sure that you don't have a lot of false starts, that you play a clean game, that you're a little more consistent, that the things that you're drilling in practice can just keep being hammered on and being emphasized and used to its potential. I think that's a big thing to watch for tonight, is if you go through a spring game with no injuries, with limited penalties are going to happen, but limited penalties, especially operational penalties, then you got to feel good about where the team has as a baseline going into August practices, the practices that will ultimately end up mattering the most. But speaking of injuries, he did go into an injury report last night to give us the latest as to who's not playing tomorrow and what the injury situation looks like now that we are exiting the spring.
Yeah, Caleb Williams, the defensive lineman that's new here, just graduated high school. He didn't do anything this spring. He'll be available this season, Todd, but it'll be very late in the summer before he really gets going. So I don't know how realistic it is. I hope he can get back, but a defensive lineman that isn't really cleared until the end of the summer, that'll be tough to say be ready for day one. And then Ryan Brubaker, who's an offensive lineman for us and has been around our program for a couple years and good solid player. He's a guy that I would say is very unlikely to be able to do anything this upcoming season.
So that's your injury report right now. Again, a couple of guys that aren't playing in this game, also including Michael Smith, a standout tight end last year who had a fantastic freshman year, a guy who I legitimately think can make the jump to being one of the top 2 or 3 pass catchers on this team in terms of just receptions and yards. You saw a lot of flashes from him, but he hadn't been able to participate much of anything at all this spring. Won't be playing in the game tonight, but you still got to be excited about what you have in him. But one thing that's also interesting about this game is how they formatted it. Now, teams do spring games differently across the country. Sometimes you will put your ones against your ones and then have one team have the number one offense, the other team have the number one defense, and have your ones play against the ones, the twos against the twos. Some coaches will do that, but the approach this year was a draft. And if you haven't seen it on the Gamecock Football Twitter page, they tweeted the video of just kind of like some highlights of what they did as a draft. Shane Beamer pretty much being Roger Goodell, the commissioner, announcing the picks, pick after pick. and the guys reacting to it. That's one thing I think would have been hilarious content, just to be able to stream that and see the player reactions when somebody gets picked. And it looks like they had a ton of fun. So drafting that is a fun little team activity there. But he was asked last night about maybe some of the specifics on the draft, reviewing it a little bit. Here was Shane's review of that inter-squad draft.
Yeah, the draft was awesome. It's one of my favorite nights of the year in our program. Total team effort with the way that our entire department, video, recruiting, nutrition, everyone, equipment, the way that we set it up, everybody has a hand in it. And it was very, very, very competitive, the draft. And then tomorrow night, we always pick 2 head coaches. And last year it was Larry Waters, our head of equipment, and Yimi Rodriguez, that's in charge of nutrition. And then this year it's George Wynn, our director of football operations, and Derek Moore, our director of character development. And they're into it.
Massively competitive guys.
Massively competitive. Yeah, they had their own war rooms last night. I couldn't even go in one of them. I mean, they had the doors shut and everything. So one team went with star power with their picks. That would be the black team. That's when the one Lenoris is on.
I was shocked he was picked first.
Yeah, well, there's strategy involved, because you got to say to yourself, how long is Lenoris going to play? And
right.
He's probably not going to be in the game in the fourth quarter. Just getting that out there. So, I think I would look for offensive fireworks early from the black team while Lenoris is in there. But there have been some interesting picks. The other team said they built their roster for the fourth quarter, and I can see what they did, and their strategy. The black team loaded up on quarterbacks. They took Aaron Nolan, Cutter Woods, and Lenoris.
Oh my gosh!
Where the Garnet team felt good, they're going with Luke Doty and Dante Reno and Jimmy Francis. But it's competitive and more intensity than I could imagine or remember with the draft. But it's fun, the way that our guys do it, Justin King and everybody. They do a great job putting it on social media.
Hey, the nature of competition isn't just for the players, too. It is for the coaches. When you get a couple of guys on the staff who get to go against each other, it can be a little more personal. It can be really competitive. Those competitive juices get to flowing, and that's a whole lot of fun. I absolutely noticed when looking at the rosters that the black team did go heavy on quarterback by getting Sellers, Nolan, and Woods. And you look, and the Garnet team still drafted really well, man. I mean, you get Dylan Stewart, you like what you have there, but taking Lenoris number 1, if we're just doing a regular draft, I completely understand, because he's the best player. He's the most notable player on the team, because he's the one that's in line for preseason Heisman discussion. Even though Dylan Stewart, I firmly believe is one of the 5 best players in America right now. So you can't go wrong either way. But it is interesting, though, taking the quarterback number 1 when you know he's not going to be playing in the second half or into the fourth quarter. That interesting strategy, but if you want to have the star power and the offensive explosion and the fireworks early on, then that's definitely the way to go. So a lot of fun with that. I think the teams were pretty well evenly distributed. A lot of excitement here. I'm pumped again. Pre-game coverage for the Garnet and Black game you can hear here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia at 6:30. And the game's going to start at 7:30, so we'll do a whole local 1-hour pregame show. And then, of course, if you're going to the game, you're going to see my play calling debut. First play from scrimmage that the black team runs is called by your boy. I'm excited, a little nervous, and I only called one play. And now that we get closer to it, my hands get a little sweaty. It's a lot of pressure on me here. So I don't know how some coaches go through an entire game and how their heart rate withstands it, but a whole lot of excitement for this game. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll give you an update at what's happening at the Ray right now. They just got done. The game just started between South Carolina and Ole Miss, game 2 of that series, as well as, is there a player in the spring transfer portal that can help transform this defense and maybe adequately fill in that Kyle Kennard spot? We'll discuss when the post-game show returns. Yeah, now seems like a really good time for some Gamecock updates. Told you I was going to give you an update from the baseball game. We got one already. We're through a half an inning of play as of what I've seen last. But before I do that, my man Thomas called in, and he wanted to give a shout-out because there's another pretty significant Gamecock athletic update to give. And I figured, you know what, Thomas, the floor is yours. Let's go ahead and shout out the latest SEC championship that this athletic department's won.
And you know we love our Gamecocks, and I want to give a big shout-out to our USC ladies golf team who defeated Florida for the SEC championship. Spurs up, and we're kicking butt.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that absolutely deserves a golf clap, Thomas. This absolutely deserves a golf clap.
Hey, and one last thing, and I'll let you go there. We got to get our men's program up and going. Because our lady Gamecocks, they're leading the way.
They are. With basketball and golf now, they've got 2 SEC titles in 2025.
That's it. All right. I'll hang up and listen to the rest of the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I figured, Thomas is probably the best messenger for this right now. He called and he's very excited about it, as he should be. This is the second time in program history that the South Carolina women's golf team has claimed an SEC title. So that's any time a program around here is picking up an SEC championship, it's a good day in Columbia, South Carolina. So, yes, shout out to the South Carolina women's golf team, SEC champions for only the second time ever. So a pretty significant day for that program. Excited to see what they do the rest of the way because there's still a whole lot more to win. The SEC is awesome where you hang the banner, but there's more that can be won too, and they're playing really good golf right now. Beat Florida today to be able to clinch it. So exciting stuff there. And then over on the diamond, we talked a lot earlier today about South Carolina beating Ole Miss 3-2 in game 1 and that fantastic complete game outing from Brandon Stone. Going to have to fight from behind because we're in the middle of the first. After the first half inning of play, Ole Miss leads 1-0. Do a little quick refresher here because you never know when things change in a couple of minutes. No, it looks like it's still 1-0 Ole Miss right now. Still very early on in the game. Lots of baseball to be played. That can definitely change. And in regards to the game last night or the game tonight, what we see on the field, for the most part, is going to be the 2025 Gamecocks. There are a couple of exceptions with injuries. There are a couple of exceptions an exception rather, with someone like Donovan Murph, who isn't able to get into school yet, finishing up his high school curriculum over at Irmo High School. There's also a possibility that you're able to add some players into the transfer portal. We still have a spring portal window, and last night on Carolina Calls, Coach Shane Beamer was asked if there is a need in the transfer portal, and here was his response.
In regards to the portal, every position, we're always looking to increase the competition and the depth at every single position, and now it's no different. Are there other positions that are maybe a little bit more pressing in regards to not having the numbers that we need? Yes, but I don't look at any position on the team necessarily and say we would turn down a great player. But the other part of it is we got a lot of really good players in our program as well, and the transfer portal opened up yesterday. Who knows what will happen with that? I want every player in our team back, but there may be some guys in our program, it's already happened, but there may be some guys in our program that decide they'd rather go somewhere else to have a larger role than what their role is currently on our team. And you don't know what's going to happen with all that. So everything's in flux. It's a busy time, but we're actively looking to make our team better and always are.
A lot of give and take there. You can either add some transfers, you might have some guys leave, but one interesting player that recently reported on has interest in South Carolina in terms of players that are in the spring portal right now, and I read this earlier today from Kevin Miller on Gamecock Central. Highly recommend reading Kevin's work, but he discussed some interest with North Carolina edge rusher Bo Atkinson. Now, if you're not familiar with Mr. Atkinson, I don't blame you if you've not watched a lot of North Carolina football because, quite frankly, the University of North Carolina, not exciting in football this past year, but Bo Atkinson had an incredible year, a breakout season at the edge rusher position. He's got great size. I mean, he's listed at 6'6", 265, so he's a large human being. a rising redshirt junior, so you could potentially get 2 years out of him. But last year, when you look at the numbers, 7.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss, had a 4-sack game against Florida State in Tallahassee earlier this past season in 2024. This could be an interesting one because Shane earlier this week too talked about, with the addition of Damon Clowney to the edge rusher room, that you're always looking for depth and competition at that position. And really, there's no better way to add depth and competition at your position of edge rusher when you're able to bring in a guy who had the season that he did this past year. I mean, anytime you can bring in someone who had 7.5 sacks and 12 tackles for loss at the Power 4 level, you're automatically intrigued by that. And if you look at the other schools that are pursuing Bo Atkinson, in Kevin's piece, he mentioned also pursued by Ohio State and Georgia. Sometimes you can tell if they're, what caliber player it is by what schools are looking at them. Some you can, some you can't. Sometimes it can be a mixed bag because evaluations aren't always universal. But in this instance, when you're competing with Ohio State and Georgia, and those two programs are interested in what this guy brings to the table, it tells you that he's got some ability and that these coaching staffs that are all reaching out to him and trying to get him on campus and trying to lure him for his services, it tells you exactly what they think about this guy. But there's a case to be made for Bo Atkinson to come to South Carolina and be able to produce right away. And you look no further than what Kyle Kennard did this past year. A very similar background, ACC player who had a breakout season. It was able to be very productive on the football field. That was the one thing I was really excited about last season with the addition of Kyle Kennard, was just how productive he was at the Power 4 level. He gets to the quarterback. This guy gets to the quarterback. And there is an intriguing option of being able to play edge rusher opposite of Dylan Stewart. Because regardless of who's going to be on that side, we know Dylan Stewart's going to be on the field a lot. And every team that plays South Carolina this year knows Dylan Stewart and knows what he can do. He's not a secret anymore. He's not sneaking up on anybody. This is a guy that, again, genuinely believes is one of the 5-6 best players in college football going into next year. An elite pass rusher and a guy that I think is going to be taken very high in the first round of the 2027 draft whenever he's eligible. And because of that, offenses that prepare for South Carolina are going to do whatever they can to give as much attention to Dylan Stewart to make sure he doesn't become a one-man wrecking machine, because we all know he's capable of that. The tape doesn't lie. The production for Dylan Stewart doesn't lie. And the fact that he was as productive as he was his freshman year while seeing a lot of double teams, a lot of extra chip blocks, a lot of focus on that side of the line of scrimmage, and still being that productive just shows you how good he is and what that ceiling is like for someone like Dylan Stewart. What Bo Atkinson can benefit from is a lot of one-on-ones, just single team against a tackle. You win that pass rush rep, you get to the quarterback, life's a lot easier for you. And when you go back and look at the Alabama game from last season, I think Jesse Palmer pointed this out very well, that you looked at a lot of those plays that Alabama was running offensively, and you looked at the blocking protection in the scheme. A lot of it was focused to keeping Dylan Stewart out of the backfield. He saw double teams. Running backs and tight ends would chip block him a lot to try to just delay him, even for a split second, to get into the quarterback. That allowed one-on-ones with Kyle Kennard and the left tackle for Alabama, Caden Proctor, which Caden Proctor, All-American in his own right. Great left tackle. And if you're Alabama, you probably feel good about maybe a one-on-one with your best left tackle, one of the best left tackles in college football. Kyle Kennard still tore him up. And Kyle Kennard had his fingerprints all over that football game. It helps a lot when you're just getting one-on-ones. So what Bo Atkinson, in terms of what the draw to South Carolina could be, as opposed to an Ohio State and Georgia, is yes, Ohio State and Georgia have great pass rushers, but they don't have Dylan Stewart. They don't have the guy that's going to take all of the attention on the offense and create very advantageous situations for him. That you have that opportunity here at South Carolina, more so than Ohio State and Georgia. So if you're Bo Atkinson, you see what Kyle Kennard did last year, it's a pretty convincing selling point. It's a very easy selling point to make. So here's to hoping that, you get Bo Atkinson on campus and maybe you see him in Garnet Black. And if you do, it's a very big pickup for the Gamecocks in the spring portal. We'll go and take a quick break, and we'll get an update on the other side. Our man Jay Phillips will see exactly if he's gotten himself into any trouble and what the latest is from the Heritage. That's coming up here on the Postgame Show. From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this beautiful afternoon, starting with an accident that's got the left lane completely blocked on I-77 northbound just after East Peach Road, exit 32. Traffic moving very slowly through there. We also have two more accidents that are also causing some traffic backup. Not as bad as that first one, but one over on Lee Road near Trowbridge Road and one on US 176 at Broad River Road near I-20. And what we're talking about, my friends, is the spring game tonight. The spring game and, of course, the cool golf tournament going on in Hilton Head right now, which Jay Phillips is at right now. And we talked to him 45 minutes ago, and I said the goal is for you to either throw up on air or get yourself in some type of trouble. I don't know if we've reached that point yet, but I know we're having some fun over there near the coast.
We are having fun. I hate to disappoint you. I am not going to throw up. At least not right now. No. I don't know if you can hear how many people are. I don't know if you can hear that coming through or not. But I am sort of at the junction of where 16 green and 17 tee meet. Soon enough here, Scotty Scheffler and Victor Hovland will be coming through. And my man, there is a throng right now waiting to see these guys come through. I can try to glance over. I can see the big leaderboard, Elijah. It looks like Justin Thomas has gone back to -11. Siwoo Kim is at 10. I think Scotty is still at 8. Victor Hovland just birdied a couple to go to 5. So we got a good group. Yeah, Justin's at 11. Siwoo's at 10. So, but I don't know how many thousands of people are in front of me right now. It's pretty awesome, dude. I'm not gonna lie. This is pretty cool. But this is obviously the group of the day. So big crowd, a lot of fun.
Lots of folks there. And I'm hoping there's a lot of folks over at Willie B tonight to be able to watch this spring game, and hope maybe with it not being on TV, maybe that's able to draw some people out. But I'm mostly excited so they can watch what we've concocted here at 107.5 The Game as the first play for the black team from scrimmage. Was just talking to you off air about my conversation with Shane Beamer last night over at Backstreets, where we kind of got to scheme this up a little bit and game plan it and kind of, put it in the game plan somewhere. And you've seen the play, so you know exactly what's about to be run. And I can confirm what you have seen is exactly what will be run first play from scrimmage from the black team tonight.
Well, again, I'll just say to everybody that yesterday I was looking at it, and when Elijah showed it to me, I just off air, and I'll say it this time because it's okay. I said, "Oh hell yeah!" So I am very excited to see this on video. I love the fact that you have run it by all involved. I love the fact that when you did so with those who actually matter, which is certainly not me, they basically had the same reaction. So this is going to be great, man. And I'm really happy for you. I think the fans are going to – this is fun. This is fun. We won't say more, but you got a good one, man. Way to go, Coach.
We'll get to break it down on Monday, where the idea for this play originated and how long it took me to get to this point, because it was quite the journey. But I can definitely confirm that it got a chuckle out of Shane when I showed him the play, and it was like, this is what I want to run, and he liked it. He liked it. We were talking through some stuff, and he goes, I remember I asked him. Because originally, like in my head, I'm like, okay, first play of the second half, right? It's an easy one to distinguish. We can get ready for it. We'll know exactly what's going on when it's going on. And he goes, well, that's a good idea, but we don't know who's going to have the ball to start the third quarter. And we would preferably only want to install this for one team. That way it's a little easier to install, and that way both teams don't have the play. And I'm like, you know what? That's why they pay you the big bucks, sir. That's a great idea.
Yeah, there you go.
So what we did instead was we had me pick a team, and of course the only question I have to ask is, all right, which one's Lenora Sellers playing on? And that's the black team, so we'll do the first play from scrimmage with the black team tonight. So that's kind of how we settled on that. That was kind of the method to the madness. So we ended up settling on that.
And the boys, now that they see that they're going to want to execute the heck out of this thing. So it's that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Hey man, what's up? Hey, sorry. Seeing my friends Sean and Susan right here walking by again. You never know who you're going to see live on the radio, Elijah Campbell. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But that's right. What's one thing I want to ask Shane next time I get a chance to talk to him is be like, all right, what was the reaction of the players when they saw this formation? What was kind of the reaction? Because I can guarantee you there had to have been some amusement there, because I don't know how many of these players have ever experienced what they're about to run in this game.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, I imagine he'll address this in postgame tonight.
Oh, has to. especially if it scores, which it will. I'm manifesting this.
Now, on our broadcast, you will be on the sideline anyway, so you will likely be able at some point, I would say not too far past when this happens, to maybe get that live on the radio tonight.
We can. We absolutely can. I know I've been gifted some really good access for tonight, thankfully, with our friends over there at the University of South Carolina. So that would be great to be able to get them on and say, all right, how'd I do? How do we execute this? And I've already got my canned response for if it fails epically. Now get this. Right. This is me listening to years of coaches talking, listening to years of coach speak. I have kind of canned my response for if it doesn't work, right? And the immediate line I'm going to pull out is, well, we liked our game plan, but the other guys on the other team are on scholarship too. And sometimes they just make the play. So I'm prepared. I'm prepared for all outcomes here. I've learned from listening to a plethora of SEC and other college football coaches around the country over the course of my 30 years on planet Earth to prepare me for whatever ends up happening with this play.
Well, I think you're gonna crush it. I think that Lenoris and his team will absolutely get this done for you. So it's gonna work. By the way, as a quick aside, I just saw 3 men that wear badges and carry Glocks, and I hope they're not going to. They're all walking together, and I hope they're not going to get Bill Gunner. So
oh no! So is
somebody
2
has
o'clock
just
still...
birdied 17?
Ooh.
Can't see who. I'm adjacent to 17 right this second, and I can't see who just birdied 17, but somebody did, because you can tell by the roar.
But 2 o'clock is still the last time you've had any signs of Bill Gunner.
Yeah, and he was fine. He was enjoying the day. Yeah, again, by all accounts, as I said earlier, at that point, and now it has been a little longer, but he had not at that point fallen into the water, been eaten by an alligator, otherwise been escorted from the course. So he's done our station, his family, all very, very proud. And I'm happy about that, because I had grave concerns at the beginning of the day.
Well, I mean, we're not out of the woods yet here, because at 2 o'clock, I mean, that is now about 102 minutes ago, if my math is correct, Jay Phillips. There's a lot that can happen in 102 minutes.
He could be in this wrong. I don't know. Again, I'm looking at thousands. I mean, there are literally, thousands of people within 100 yards of me right now. So he could be in there. He could be down. He could be asleep somewhere under one of these big, giant cypress trees with Spanish moss hanging down. I don't know, Elijah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pulling for him.
An hour and 42 minutes is that's a lot, man. That's a lot that's a lot of time in which something can go wrong. Like, that's a full feature length film. And a lot can happen when somebody's watching a full feature length film. And that's the amount of time that's passed since you've seen him last. So,
well, and eventually we're going to make a full feature-length film on the life of Bill Gunner. So, in and of itself, it's somewhat got that artistic merit already rolling. So
it does. I mean, that one may be a little longer than 100 some odd, 110 minutes or so. I think that one can go the full Lincoln, like the entire 3-hour Lincoln biopic. I think we can probably get Daniel Day-Lewis to come out of retirement for that one. Maybe.
It'll be like The Godfather with more boats.
Yes, it's actually just the Boat Father, where it's just nothing but Bill and his boats.
That's right. All right. Well, hey, I need before I am swallowed whole and can't watch this golf. I'm going to wish you, Coach, the best. In all seriousness, I'm glad that this got pulled off and that this is going to happen tonight. And again, I think you have drawn up and called for a fantastic play that I think fans are going to absolutely love. So go Lenoris and the black team, make it happen, and we'll talk about it on Monday.
Absolutely, hopefully. So maybe a black team win, I'll count that in my coaching record. So that will go down. We will count it as the Jay Phillips coaching tree continues to grow.
Yep. So, all right, have fun, man.
Godspeed.
I'm pulling for you. All right.
Yeah, Jay's about to go walk into a large, massive crowd of people. So we wish him luck as well. We share our concerns for Bill Gunner, but Jay's about to get swallowed whole by that crowd. So good luck to Jay, and very excited to call this play. But we'll go ahead, take a quick break. We'll round out today's show before we get into our hour of the best of the day so I can get to Willie B. I do want to pay homage to one Lee Corso. We touched on it a little bit earlier this week, but this man's done a lot for the game of college football and how we consume the sport of college football. And I think it's only appropriate that we end today's show talking about one of the best to ever do it in the booth. This is the postgame show. Before we get out of here, before we pay some homage to Lee Corso, who is retiring officially, will have his last college game day show on August 30th. Got to give you some baseball updates. Last update I gave you, Ole Miss was up 1-0 at the end of the top of the first. Well, the Gamecock bats have responded. They brought the bats to the Ray today. Jace Woida gets a 2-out RBI single. We've talked all year long about this team has struggled at times to be able to hit with runners in scoring position. Too many left on base. And with runners in the corners with 2 outs, Jace Woida ties it up with a base hit into the outfield. And then they end up tacking on 2 more runs. They took a 3-1 lead to the end of the first. Jake McCoy's got 4 strikeouts through the first 2 innings. Had a runner on first with 2 outs and strikes out a batter looking to end the inning. And then just recently, Nathan Hall hits one out of the park. His 6th homer of the season. It's a solo shot over to left center. Gamecocks lead 4-1 in the bottom of the 2nd inning. So we talked about how great it was to get Brandon Stone going and getting a complete game to open up the possibility for your bullpen to be able to be fresh as humanly possible for these last 2 games. That's a great check mark. You bounce back down 1-0 already. You end up putting up 4 unanswered runs, including a Nathan Hall homer, somebody that you want to see continue to play really well. Now you're up 4-1, so this is a really good sign so far. Obviously, a lot of baseball left. Jake McCoy's got to be able to get you pretty far in this game, and if he does, which he's pitching pretty well right now, again, 4 strikeouts after 2 innings, he's able to get you pretty far into this game. I like your chances of the bullpen without having to use too many arms to maybe take care of business, and if you hold on, you end up winning this one right here. You not only win an SEC series, you win an SEC series against the number 11 team in the country and give yourself a chance to sweep them. And then all of a sudden, you go from being 2-13 in SEC play coming into this series to 5-13. You crawl up the standings a little bit. You start feeling a little better about yourself. And then ultimately, maybe you can put yourself in a position to make a run in Hoover and make the committee think about it, about putting you in, and then maybe you can play some postseason baseball. Maybe getting ahead of ourselves there, but this is something that's a very good developments going on at Founders Park right now. I mentioned it before the break, and I want to have this be the last thing we mention before we go off the air, because again, for those who don't know, from 5 to 6, we'll be doing the best of from today, just so I can be able to get to the stadium and in plenty of time to be able to sideline report for tonight's Garnet and Black game. But we're going to end the show here talking about Lee Corso, this guy who, I grew up watching. I'm 30 years old. I've been watching College Game Day since I was a small child. I think the first College Game Day I remember watching live would have been in 2001. So all I remember is on College Game Day every Saturday, eagerly waiting for Lee Corso to put on a mascot head. It's one of the greatest bits in sports media. There are a lot of great bits in sports media. Radio, TV, whatever. But the best one has always been Lee Corso putting on the headgear. And shout out to Tyler Head for giving this awesome cut. I want to play this for you. This is the origin of Lee Corso's headgear picks.
Every Saturday morning during the college football season, Lee Corso's iconic headgear picks have been a staple leading into a full day's worth of games. But how did they come to be? In 1996, while College Game Day was at Ohio State, Corso had fellow analyst Kirk Herbstreit ask his wife Allison, a former Buckeyes cheerleader, if she'd be willing to talk to the school's cheerleading advisor to see if he could put on Brutus's famous mascot head. And after some heavy negotiations, history was made.
Buckeyes!
From roasting Ugga,
But that dog is ugly! Give me this thing here!
to the rare 4-letter word,
The last part's the best Lee Corso moment. If we're asking for what the best Lee Corso moments are in the history of College Game Day, him saying bleep it and taking a gun and accidentally firing it. No, that was when he threw the Houston Cougar headgear off and picked up another one. Dropping the F-bomb on air is pretty funny. Accidentally shooting the Oklahoma, I guess, guns that they have, their Boomer Sooner, little rifles, whatever. I don't think he thought it was loaded. Or not loaded, but they had, blanks in. I didn't think he thought he could possibly do that because it scared everybody on the desk. And Kirk Herbstreit's face during that moment is the funniest part of it. If you just go on YouTube and you just search Lee Corso shoots gun on game day set, you will see him firing that sucker off and scaring the living hell out of one Kirk Herbstreit. And that's the entertainment value there. It's always been lighthearted with Lee Corso, and that's a guy that's always understood that this stuff is fun. Like, the analysis is important, breaking down the game, being informative is important, and that's a large part of the gig, but being entertaining and having fun with it and making it a fun event to watch every Saturday morning is what made College Game Day separate itself from any other type of pregame show on the planet. And I absolutely love hearing Lee Corso lore when it comes to the origins of the mascot headgear prediction. So, Lee Corso, hats off to you, good sir, for a career well done. And we're going to miss seeing you on College Game Day every Saturday. I'll be locked in for that final episode. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for Jay Phillips for humoring me for a little bit while he was on the golf course in Hilton Head. I'm Elijah Campbell. I'm off to Willie B. I hope to see you there. Best of coming up.